Hey guys, it's Andrew Henderson from Nomad Capitalist here at the Pyramids of Egypt in Giza, and wanted to share an interesting story that I saw unfolding this morning and how I think it applies to going offshore, going where you're treated best. Um, when you come to Egypt, a lot of people would expect, and it's true, a lot of touts, especially here when you enter the pyramids. Everyone has a camel, everyone has something to sell you, and uh, I think they're friendly, but they're very aggressive, very persistent. The minute one guy finally leaves you alone, the next guy starts asking if you want a camel. And I've overheard some folks, some tourists, saying, "Wow, that's really, a scam or a ripoff or whatever." One guy even said it to one of the touts' face, "We're not going to be ripped off." And it's funny because what these guys offer you before you even talk to them, they offer you camel rides for $5, $6, $7. It's not expensive. And I thought to myself, I said, what's the worst case scenario if we get ripped off for $5? And I think that for a lot of folks, the worst case scenario is that they got ripped off. It's not about the amount. It's not about what actually happens. Let's say the guy promises you an hour camel ride for $6 and he takes you for 45 minutes. And people get all upset and they ruin their day over that. And I saw and I kind of thought of some parallels to how that applies to going offshore, where people let their egos get in the way when they can save a ton of money by moving their company overseas or whatever it may be, getting an offshore bank account. They're so worried about what happens if something goes wrong that they ignore what is the worst case scenario. And so when I like to make decisions, I look at what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario, what's the most likely scenario. The most likely scenario when you hire a guy to take you on a camel is he does basically what he says. The worst case scenario is you lose he just takes your $6 and runs off like a banshee into the night. And I think that especially when dealing with other cultures, we're so afraid of our egos being hurt that we delay and just put off making decisions. Where I'm from in the U.S., probably where you're from, a lot of people aren't used to touts. We don't just follow people around offering them stuff and bothering them. And it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that it's a different culture. I think that we get scared off by that and think it must be a scam. So when it comes to going offshore, I've seen people talk about, what if I open a foreign bank account and I get scammed? Well, it's a possibility. Obviously, the mitigating circumstances there, put $1,000 in. And if something goes wrong, you're out $1,000. The most likely scenario is it's just business as usual. And the best case scenario is you find a new great opportunity. There's this great fear where people, they don't want to hire lawyers, they don't want to hire experts, they don't want to go and do anything because they only want to focus on what happens if something goes wrong. And I can tell you in 10 years of doing this, I had one experience in Central America. I lost about $600. It was partially my fault, and I learned from it, and I went, and I still was able to accomplish what I wanted to. Nothing horrible happened. My identity wasn't stolen. I wasn't kidnapped and held for ransom. And I think that getting over this ego and going out and doing what we need to do, if we want to move our company offshore and save a lot of money in taxes, the legal way, find someone who can help you. And don't be afraid of the cultural difference. Look, there's two ways to solve any problem. One, in the case of, let's take camels. You can come to Egypt, you can spend a month or 2 months or however long it takes to learn how they negotiate and master it and be able to deal with them. Or you can hire a guide who can then negotiate with them and do that work for you. Either way, if you want to go offshore, if you want to take those steps to protect yourself and go where you're treated best, it's important that you choose one of the two options, that you either hire someone to help you who knows the terrain, or that you're prepared to go and do it yourself and suffer a few minor cuts and bruises and scrapes that probably won't be that bad. Obviously, one takes a lot more time than the other, one costs more than the other, but those really are the two options if you want to go offshore. Complaining and worrying about being scammed and worrying about problems that don't really exist in real life isn't the best way to go. It's something that I saw here in Egypt, and I wanted to pass it along to you because I think that we can all learn from understanding that the unknown doesn't necessarily have to be bad, and more often than not, it's exactly what you already know, just a little bit different, and possibly when it comes to going offshore, a lot more beneficial for your wallet and for your freedom.